Vine stood outside her husband's home office, flinching occasionally whenever she heard the crashing sound of something breaking. It was midnight, and she was sleeping peacefully in the bedroom until she heard the smashing sound and decided to check. She closed her eyes when another crashing sound reached her ears. Jungkook, her arranged mafia husband, was known for his cruelty and ruthless behavior, a short-tempered guy who could burn the whole world with fire of his rage. She had heard about how cruel her husband was and how dangerous his anger could be, but she hadn't witnessed his anger until now. Hearing his loud groans and smashing sounds from the other side of the door, she was scared to her core. She was trembling with fear that she didn't notice when the sound of crashing stopped until the door of his office flung open. Her eyes met his red and rage filled eyes. Chills ran down her spine when she realized she was standing face to face with the enraged lion. Her pupils dilated. She screamed inwardly and tried so hard to run towards the bedroom, but her feet felt heavy as if someone had tied tons of weight on her feet and threw her in the deep ocean. She was making efforts to come to the surface, but those weights held her back every time. She looked down, not being able to hold the intense eye contact with him. She stood before him like a trembling leaf, clenching and unclenching her hands as anxiety rose in her nerves. She wanted the mother earth to swallow her so that she could be away from his eyes. He took a step towards her and she shut her eyes instinctively. She awaited for him to make any movements to hurt her like she heard about him, but instead he walked past her. Fluttering her eyes open, she watched him retreating back until he disappeared from her sight. She let out a breath that she didn't know was holding till now and peeked inside his office room, which wasn't like looking like office anymore. It was a mess, as if a storm had just come and left, leaving behind the remnants of its damage. She sighed and made her way towards the bedroom to sleep, well aware Jungkook would be coming home tonight. She walked towards the bed and was about to sit on it, but she held her head as she felt dizzy and fell down on the bed. She winced, her head spun, and she blinked her eyes to clear her vision. She felt frown forming between her forehead as to why all of a sudden she felt dizzy. She shook her head, shrugging off her thoughts, and got under the covers to have her beauty sleep, which was earlier ruined by Jungkook. The bright sunlight reflected through the glass window, creating a soft yellow hue all over the room. Vine groaned and squinted her eyes when she felt the warmth of sunlight on her face. Slowly opening her eyes, she blinked towards to adjust her vision to daylight. She stretched lazily, yawned, and sat up and whined as she felt tired just after waking up. She didn't want to leave the soft mattress, so she slumped back and fell asleep in no time. Next time she woke up, it was evening. Oh God, did I sleep through the whole day? She held her head as she saw the clock which struck 4 o'clock. She hastily rose from the bed and instantly fell back down, feeling dizzy again. What's wrong with me? She sighed and rubbed her face in annoyance when all of a sudden she gagged and an urge to throw up hit her. She ran inside the bathroom and discarded whatever she ate last night. Rinsing her mouth, she dragged her feet back in the bedroom and lay down on the bed completely drained out of energy. She stared at the ceiling, recalling whatever was happening with her. Dizziness, nausea, tiredness, sore breast, mood swings. She noted everything in her mind. Reaching out for her cell phone, she typed the symptoms and searched for the reason of her ill health. After reading few articles and surfing the internet, she came to one conclusion. Pregnant? She whispered to herself. Is this possible? She whispered to herself as her trembling hands reached out for her stomach. Gulping down the lump formed in her throat, she pushed herself off the bed and walked towards the bathroom to perform a pregnancy test. Luckily, she had few test sticks at home. She came outside holding two sticks and settled on the edge of the bed as she patiently awaited for the results. After a few minutes, which felt like hours, she slowly peered at the test sticks. Tears pooled in her eyes when two lines showed up. She felt a rush of emotions when she processed she was actually pregnant. Thick tears rolled down her cheeks as she grappled with the flood of emotions. She didn't know how to feel as she analyzed the gravity of situation. The fetus growing in her womb wasn't a seed of their love. It was an accidental pregnancy, which was the result of one drunk night. This marriage was an arrangement made by her father, and she accepted despite being scared. First few months were okay. They used to have small talks during breakfast or dinner. One was slowly falling for Jungkook's care, though he wasn't expressive with words, but his actions were enough to warm her heart. It was going okay until a month ago when they were invited in one of his friends' birthday party. They got extremely drunk and ended up sleeping together. The morning after, Ryan thought it would be a turning point of their relationship. They would grow closer, but everything turned out otherwise. An invisible charm had creating between them. Jungkook distanced himself and avoided her as much as possible. The small talks turned into nothing. His responses became short and monosyllabic. They were like two strangers living under the same roof. Amidst their chaotic relationship, this unexpected pregnancy was like a big burden on her shoulder. She wasn't ready for it. If Jungkook were by her side, things would have been different, but his ignorance had only added up to her anxiety. She held her head in frustration and burst into loud sobs. She was stressed, and her health condition was taking its toll on her mental health. She wanted to tell about it to Jungkook, but was scared of his reaction. What if he didn't accept it and abandoned me? These types of thoughts were making her cry harder. It had been 3 days. 3 days since she came to know about her pregnancy, and 3 days since saw Jungkook. She had last seen him at that night, and he didn't came back home after that. She was worried to death. She had asked the guards about his whereabouts and came to know that he had gone for a mission and would return soon. She sighed and lay down on the couch, her mind preoccupied with different thoughts. Sensing the sound of footsteps approaching towards her, she sat up alarmed. She looked around and found Jungkook gracing the living area with his presence after days. Relief washed over her senses when she looked at him. He was fine, excluding some random cuts and small wounds. Looking at his face, it seemed like he wanted to say something, but Wine beat him to it. Jungkook, she softly called out and pushed herself off the couch. As she took a step towards him, she felt her head spinning. She clutched her head as black dots appeared before her eyes. Through her blurry vision, she noticed Jungkook running towards her before darkness engulfed her senses. Fluttering her eyes open, the vibrant ceiling was the first thing that came in her line of vision. She whimpered and tried to sit up, but her body felt too heavy to even move. She stirred, awakening the man who was asleep beside her, seated near the foot of the bed whilst his head rested on the bed beside her. He jolted up and looked at Ryan. A sigh of relief escaped his lips when he found her awake, already looking at him. Are you okay? Feeling pain anywhere? He asked softly. She shook her head, speechless by his concerned demeanor. She watched him leaning closer and instantly closed her eyes. She drew a deep breath when she felt his cold lips against her warm forehead. His lips lingered there for some good minutes before he pulled back and cupped her one cheek. Do you want to eat something? She shook her head. I'm pregnant, Jungkook, she whispered in her hoarse voice. She expected him to be shocked. Instead, he smiled slightly. I know, he mumbled, stroking her head with her other hand. How? Doctor told me. When you fainted, I called the doctor. She told me you are pregnant. We have to visit hospital tomorrow for some test. He said as if everything was normal between them. You don't have any issue? She asked, perplexed about his reaction, feeling a gush of uncertainty at the back of her head. He sighed, knowing why was she reacting this way. I know what you are thinking, Ryan, that I wasn't even talking to you and now suddenly why I am being nice, right? Ryan averted her eyes away. That was what she was actually thinking. He exhaled deeply and held her hand, giving it a light squeeze. That night, he commenced. Ryan tried to remove her hand from his grip, but he tightened his hold. I was drunk, Ryan. Whatever happened wasn't supposed to happen that way. I never intended to touch you without your permission, let alone being drunk. She looked at him, hearing his words. He thought he forced her, but she remembered everything. Whatever happened was never your fault, Jungkook. We both were drunk, and it was consensual. You didn't touch me without my consent. It happened because we both wanted it, and we both weren't in our senses. She clarified and watched his expression shifted from guilt to relief. Wait, you avoided me because you think you forced yourself on me? He nodded and looked at her with mixed emotions. He grappled with himself, searching appropriate words to voice out what he feels. Since childhood, I was always surrounded by weapons in this dark mafia world. I don't know what love is and how it feels to love someone. Therefore, I denied to marry you, Ryan, but somehow I ended up marrying you. I tried my best to be a good husband to you, but I think I failed. He sucked a deep breath before continuing. I am equally afraid to invest in a relationship. I don't want to hurt you, but if you are willing to stay by my side and teach me what love is, I'll be a good husband and a good father, maybe. He blurted out, and she chuckled, finding him cute. I am ready for forever, she confessed with a genuine smile on her lips. A sly smile appeared on Jungkook's lips as he attached his forehead with hers.